Good day and welcome to Vendée Live. I'm Ryan Braymeyer and we're here in rainy Les Sables d'Olonne. Live today with special guest Sam Manuard, who's a good friend and architect of the Occitane de Provence boat of Armel Tripon, among many others. Sam's one of the leading lights of French yacht design, having designed the majority of the winners in the Class 40 in the past several years, along with a lot of successful minis and other boats. Thank you very much for being here today, Sam.
Thank you, Ryan. Hi, everyone.
So, two important points today with the news. First, we have Charlie Dallin and Thomas Royan, who are trying to make a break ahead of the leading pack, who are all facing a big low-pressure system with a front. Hopefully, those two will manage to stay ahead of it by pushing their boats at around 100% of their potential. Second, with a similar problem they face, you have the group of four south of the African continent who are also obliged to make a break for it if they can ahead of a low-pressure system descending off of South Africa towards them. In this case, Occitane and perhaps La Fabrique seem to be the only boats who will be capable of actually staying ahead of the front. Sam, are you following the race quite a bit, or just Occitane in particular?
No, I'm following all the boats. I'm quite obsessed by that, actually, so I spend quite a lot of time every day looking at the progression of the boat and looking at some forecasts and some routings. And to me, it's super interesting to see exactly the real performance the guys are able to achieve.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing, and it's obsessive for a lot of people, no doubt about it. Speaking of performances, it's always important to stay in tune with the weather and with the ocean around you. We have quite an interesting video from Giancarlo Pedote today, where he explains his rhythm in terms of sailing and how he feels it best to stay in phase with the ocean around him.
Alors, qu'est-ce qui représente pour moi l'océan Indien? Eh ben, je pense que je pourrais répondre à cette question quand je serai dans le Pacifique, si Neptune me laissera passer. Et dans tous les cas, j'ai constaté que dans l'océan Indien, il y a une espèce de musique constante où la tonalité, c'est la force du vent et le tempo, c'est la cadence de la houle. Donc, si on est trop lent, on se fait rattraper par la houle derrière. Si on va trop vite, on se plante sous la vague suivante. Donc, il faut aller absolument au ton de la musique. Voilà, c'est ça pour l'instant que je constate dans l'océan Indien. Il faut respecter la musique.
You know, I've spent a lot of time with Giancarlo over the last year, and I had no idea that he was a musician. What do you think about all that, Sam?
Yeah, I think it's a very nice comparison, and yeah, for sure, in this deserted place, and you have to follow the rhythm that Mother Nature is imposing.
Absolutely. Well, let's have a look at the rankings for today. We can see the rhythm that everyone is managing, I'd say. In our first group, we have Charlie Dallin and Thomas Royan at the head of the leading group with some amazing performances from the non-foiling boats. Damien Séguin, Jean Lecam, and Ben Dutroux in 5th, 6th, and 7th places, respectively, with Maxime Sorel on a non-foiler as well, bringing up the last of our leading pack of 11 boats. After we find our group of the four horsemen, as it were, coming up, and in the internationals, Didac Costa and Pip Hare, who we had the pleasure of speaking with this morning, who are just closing in on the Cape of Good Hope. After them, also in the internationals, Miranda Marin, Ari Huzla, and Kojiro Shirashi, getting ready to dive into the Roaring 40s. They're just approaching the line now where it all gets exciting. Later on today, we expect to hear from Kojiro on how he's managed to fix his broken tack line and gotten moving properly. Again, after perhaps we can have a look at the fleet in graphical format, it gives perhaps a better impression of the distances amongst the fleet. Starting at the front, we've got Charlie Dallin and Thomas Royan. They're going super quickly, averaging 21 knots, burst to 25 or more than 400 miles in the last 24 hours. As well, we have Louis Burton, Yannick Mestabin, who managed to average 20 knots in the night. Further back, the rest of the fleet, And then moving swiftly along, we've got Roman Attanasio and Clarisse Kremer, who seem to be tied together with shot cord, always sailing close to each other and have managed to find themselves in decently strong southwesterlies. After the infamous group of four again, who passed the Cape of Good Hope last evening. They're still in fairly light breeze, but with the approach of a low from the north, they have to get east as quickly as possible to avoid being trapped upwind against the ice exclusion zone. Zooming out, we see the whole fleet from Charlie Dallin in the front to Jeremy Bayou bringing up the rear. He's 37 miles behind the leader after his restart 9 days after the fleet. The weather situations which create these massive separations already a third of the way through the race are quite interesting to look at. Here's a closer look at the choices that the two groups will face, the leading pack and the group of four. A satellite picture of the weather systems around the fleet. We have a low pressure for the back markers. We have the low with the famous front for the front of the pack. And in the middle, we have our group of four who are pretty much in the center of a small high pressure system. The bands of color that you see are rain, as I'm sure most people know from weather maps. Here's the famous front for the front markers. We have a bit of an animation to show what's going to happen there. Again, here's the front. Charlie Dallin and Thomas Royan are already ahead of the front. Jean Le Cam is to the north. He won't be able to catch the front. And the back markers, as the front is at an angle, it's already formed in front of them, so they have no possibility of catching it either. It's interesting to watch what goes on with Charlie and Thomas in the animation. As we can see, the front moves forward. They have to accelerate to the maximum potential of their boats. The trajectory optimal would be to go further south. They will more likely try to stay a bit north to avoid the worst of this. The worst of this is 45 to 50 knots, 8-meter waves, which no one likes. As you can see, Thomas Royan here, he's barely able to keep ahead of the front. Charlie Dallin a bit better. None of the rest of the pack has a chance, including Jean Le Cam, even though he's been the fastest boat today thus far, averaging 21 knots, 459 miles sailed in 24 hours. If we go back to the weather chart, we have our group of four here, and this represents the beginnings of a small low which is going to form and then come down across their course. It's interesting to see either they have to accelerate quite a bit and stay ahead of it, or they need to slow down right now and let it pass ahead of them. Otherwise, they'll be going upwind in 40 knots of breeze, 3 to 5 meter waves, which no one's interested in doing. Again, we have an animation of that. In the animation here, we see the high pressure, the beginnings of the low here. We have the group of four, L'Occitane, La Fabrique, Time for Oceans, and La Micaline. You see, as they start to accelerate, the low forms above them. They really have to go fast along the ice gate. As the low comes down, they find themselves in a position where the wind is coming from quite far forward, to the point where La Fabrique will most likely have to tack and go upwind a little while in 25 to 30 knots to stay ahead of it. You can see L'Occitane manages to just squeak through. The boat behind, which represents La Micaline, he finds himself 200 miles behind after this weather system, which is quite a lot. These are the choices we face in the Vendée Globe. So there we have it. The weather is complicated for everyone, and everyone has choices to make. This is the most important job as a skipper of one of these boats. Sam, what do you think about the choice by Charlie and Thomas to send it at full speed to try to get ahead of this front, rather than playing it a bit safe, heading north, letting the front get past, and keeping a small cushion on the people just after them?
It's a very tricky situation. I'm afraid that the routings are a little bit optimistic, and it could very well be that they are not able to sail as fast as the routing suggests, and so they could very well slow down a bit to let the very harsh conditions in front of them I would think so.
Yeah, it is. This is the discussion we've been having here at race headquarters for the last few days, and there's obviously no easy answer. Charlie Dallin was on the French language program earlier today, and he seemed to be fairly confident. You have to say though that in the live video he was getting thrashed around pretty well. He's got the afterburners on, trying to get as far ahead as possible right now.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really a matter of managing the risk, basically. As far as I understand it, is that they have two very efficient boats. So do they need to take a lot of risk at this stage, that early in the race? I don't think so, but
yeah. Yeah, it's a difficult choice because it's a little bit, as we say in America, it's a bit hitting a home run. You either going to hit it out of the park, or you strike out, one of the two. So hopefully for them they hit it out of the park. Perhaps for the pursuers, it's a little bit better that they strike out. Who knows? Second situation, what do you think about your friend Armel Tripon? In 15 knots of breeze on the beam and 2-meter waves. How fast can that boat go? Is he going to be able to stay ahead of this low pressure?
Well, I hope for him, because as you said, you don't want to upwind and very strong conditions. But yeah, in 15 knots beam reaching, he could average around 17, 18 knots. So.
Yep. And you know, it's kind of all about your mental state, isn't it? Where you know, if you feel confident, like Armel seems to feel confident at the moment, he can forge ahead and light it up and get going and get ahead of it. But if he wasn't feeling confident, if he was a little bit unsure, or if he's unhappy with something about the boat, he might not find himself particularly ready to take the chance to really go fast at the moment. You know.
Well, it looks like Armel is in a very good spirit, and he's super positive in his attitude, and he really impresses me. And I think he don't have a lot of choices, so he have to sail fast, and sailing fast in these conditions is not really risky. So, in my opinion, this is an obvious choice. He will have to sail as fast as possible in the next couple of days.
Yeah, it seems a bit of a no-brainer for him.
Yeah.
Mental state is obviously super important. I had the pleasure of speaking to someone today whose mental state is constantly impressive, and that's Pip Hare.
How's it going today?
Hi Ryan, it's good. Yeah, the sun is out today, which is quite incredible.
Amazing. Here it's pouring rain. I envy you being down there in the bright sunshine. I can see you've got your tropical flare out today as well.
Well, every self-respecting ocean sailor goes everywhere with a parrot, don't they? Well, it's nice to see the sun because it's been a tough night. I broke the tack line in the middle of the night, and I'm quite close to the ice limit, so had a bit of a job on to sort of get the bow down and get the tack replaced and everything before I made too many miles to the south. But it's all good now and the sun's out, so every day's a new day.
How you're holding up mentally and your morale and all that, but I think it's very obvious, huh?
Yeah, it's good. I think, you know, the last few days with you know, the damage and people hitting things has been, you know, it's been a bit jangly on the nerves.
That's amazing. As the French say, un émérdement par jour, you know, one problem per day. And I'm sure that you're not exempt from that, but it's nice to see that you're dealing with it without any trouble. Hey, I wanted to ask you, have you seen any whales?
No, and I'm actually really happy about that. Let's keep it that way, shall we?
Absolutely. And how do you see the Southern Ocean going for you? You feel like it's going to be good for getting a bit of rest since you're not in so much boat traffic anymore and all that, or do you find yourself awake a lot more worrying about the boat?
It's hard to know, really. I'm really aware that I haven't, you know, really had a taste of what it's going to be like in, you know, big breeze, big waves for an extended period. We've just sort of had tiny little tasters so far of what it might look like. I mean, I think it'll be okay. I can't see that I'm going to get. I think I'll get used to the pace of things, and I'll be able to rest more. It's just a question of finding the right rhythm for me. At the moment, I'm not sure because I just still don't know what the problem is. If you know what I mean, I haven't experienced it, so I don't know how it's going to be for me.
I find it just unbelievable to have a conversation with somebody who is so positive like that, notwithstanding the fact that her budget is absolutely stretched to the limit. She's got one of the oldest boats in the fleet, which incidentally is a credit to Bernard Stam, who built the thing with his own hands almost 20 years ago. And it's just amazing, and it's such an inspiration for me to be able to see that. Sam, as a designer, is there anything that you can do with the design of your boats to help keep people in that frame of mind when they're out at sea?
Yes, I guess it's super important to feel comfortable on the boat and to feel in a positive environment, and you're happy to be in your boat, etc. And this is something we worked quite a lot on L'Occitane. And for example, the cockpit with a 360-degree vision, and it's very comfortable. You feel protected, and all that little things help to be positive, of course.
Yeah, it sounds like it. It sounds amazing. Speaking of the boat, her boat was sailed by Alain Rohrer in the last Vendée Globe, and by all accounts, when he got it back, it was basically at the end of its rope. And yet here it is again, refit one more time on its, I don't know how manyth time around the world, 5 or 6 or 7 times around the world. As a designer, do you think about what the second life might be for your boats? And do you think that we'll see L'Occitane 20 years down the track still racing around the world?
I don't know. The evolution of the high-tech racing boats is more and more refined, and the boats are more and more in the edge, close to the edge. So it's difficult to foresee that the new boats will have such a long competitive life.
Interesting.
You never know because
yeah, you never. I bet Bernard Stam never thought that boat was going to be around 20 years later, still racing around the world either. You know.
Yeah, true.
Listen, that brings us to Armel Tripon with a demonstration of his mood today and a demonstration of the speed of his boat. Let's have a look.
Bienvenue à bord de l'Occitane en Provence. Et voilà, on vient de franchir la longitude du cap de Bonne-Espérance. C'est l'entrée dans l'océan Indien, marquée par la tempête, comme vous pouvez voir. Voilà, une nuit compliquée dans peu de vent, et ça y est, ça redémarre. Ça redémarre et c'est parti. Donc voilà, on va traquer au dieu Neptune. Il va nous laisser encore la chance de continuer et d'avoir un océan Indien clément. Et voilà, au dieu, au bateau, et puis pour le skipper également. Longue route à l'Occitane. Allez, à très bientôt.
Well, he's obviously very happy at the moment, having gotten past Cape of Good Hope in good conditions and beautiful weather, obviously, way better than you'd expect. Sam, can you bring us up to speed a little bit on the design process that you went through when designing Occitane? In general terms, what were the most important points you looked at, perhaps starting with the shape of the hull, which is obviously very different from everyone else?
Yeah, what we wanted is to have a boat that was a little bit more forgiving in the nosedive. When you sail downwind in the waves, you're quite happy to have a boat with some spatule in the front, so bow that is voluminous and quite up. so that you don't bury the nose so often. So that was one point, and also the other point on the foil design was to make foils that could be retracted as much as possible out of the water for these rough conditions when you want to slow down the pace.
Okay, interesting. And when lifting those foils up like that, do you have any idea around how big a waves you feel compelled to do that, or is this going to be the big test here in the next couple of weeks for Armel?
It's really a question on how hard you want to push and what are the conditions right now. So it's difficult to put a wave height on which you're going to start doing that. It's really it's more depending on the slope of the waves rather than on the height of the wave, because you can have massive waves, but as long as the wavelength is big, then there is no problem. And usually, so on the cold front, behind the warm front, these guys, especially the front guys, they've been sailing in super difficult conditions, and they had to slow down. We were sailing around
Right.
15, 16.
So that's the conditions where the Occitan would maybe have an advantage staying over top of the waves. Interesting. Well, listen, this brings us to questions from the audience on social networks. We have our question from Merlin Suggs III from Annapolis, Maryland. How do foils increase loading in the boat? How do foils change the load case when you're designing a boat? In layman's terms, for people who don't really understand that much about how the foils actually function.
Well, the foils is with the speed is generating more righting moment. So the rig and most of the structure is being loaded a lot more, and the increase of righting moment can be as strong as 50%. So we are increasing a lot the righting moment.
Amazing. So basically, you have a thing which increases your speed, but it comes at the expense, if you will, of much more load on everything on the boat, up to 50% more than a boat without foils. That's amazing. And moving to the second part of that question, again from Merlin, do different foil concepts have a different effect on this? What is it about the foils that increases the load so much? And is there a way you can design a foil which does its job without creating so much load in the structure of the boat?
More or less, you can try to fine tune your design, obviously, but it really pays off to increase the righting moment. So regardless the design of the foil, one will be tempted to increase that parameter because it's a main driver for boat speed.
Okay, right. So basically you could equate it to the horsepower in the engine of a car. The bigger the foil, the more horses you have under the hood, and the faster the thing will go in a straight line, but watch out for the corners, I guess.
Yes, that's exactly that, especially in reaching angles. Now for the downwind, it's a little bit of a different story. And then you could argue that you don't need that much of a righting moment, but
Okay.
yeah, the bigger foil, the bigger the engine, that sums up, yeah.
Okay, great. Well, listen, it's been very good to talk to you. We're gonna have to say goodbye to everyone from here in beautiful Les Sables d'Olonne on this rainy day. And I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.
All right, well, that's that for today's Vendée Live, as I said, from Les Sables d'Olonne.